All right, we're going to get started now. So, want you to know that I'm building a website for this, for our Bible study, and then also for anybody else that wants to join. Right now, it's just a Bible study at GoDaddy Sites, sites.com. So it's Bible study, and I can send it out when I send it out today, the link.
Yeah.
If you go to that on the web, if you go to Bible study at GoDaddySites.com, yeah, you'll see our Bible study. And what we'll do is from here on out, I've had some people that think they can't make it here on that, but if we record these, I can put them on the website, and then they can watch them if they want.
Good idea. Oh, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, Gary, you
Yeah.
didn't happen to send an email to Stitch about last night, did you?
No, I didn't, but I will. He wants to come on Mondays, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send him one. I feel good about doing the first one, and I feel good now. So I think I'll get him involved.
Okay.
All righty. All right. Warm-up questions, Nehemiah 5. What's interesting is we've all been talking about Nehemiah and how he was dedicated, and which he's never stopped being dedicated. But this chapter is a complete flip. Through the entire chapter 5, they stop working. They're not working on the wall. They're not. They are done. And there's reason, we'll get into the reasons why and what's going on. But this is when nothing is being done. And if you can see, it says no one is working. Yeah, so they've quit. So our first question, in your growing up years, what kind of fighter were you with your friends, siblings, or others? Were you a scrapper? Were you an underdog? Or were you top dog?
I tried growing up, probably I always tried to avoid the fights, but there was a few scraps that I got into that unavoidable, and I probably took the brunt of it. But I'd say I'm the scrapper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, that would be me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was down there strutting with the chickens, so
Okay.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
I probably
Does that mean you are a top dog?
no.
Okay, chickens. Well, I see what you're saying.
Chicken shit is
Yeah.
today's,
Okay.
yeah.
You're on the other end. Yeah.
Doormat.
Yeah.
Depending what group
Well, that
I
just shows you how diverse we are, because I would tell you, I told you, I think the last time when I grew up, I looked for fights.
Mhm.
I was, everybody says, well, you're an only child in life. They go, you're an only child. But, you don't realize in a small town, you're an only child, and everybody's got brothers, and everybody says, well, you're going to mess with me, you mess with my big brother. Well, so I finally said, well, you know what? I don't care who your big brother is.
Yeah.
Bring him on.
Yeah.
So I don't think I walked around, well, I was obnoxious like a top dog, but I didn't back away. I was not afraid to take on anybody, and I don't care how big they were. So that was me. Dave, how about you?
Probably a strapper.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, as fast as you could run.
Avoid everything. I try to avoid.
You probably could outrun these guys.
The
Marv, how about you?
I was thinking about that, Gary. It probably depended upon the group I was with at the time. If I was with my own peers, I think I tried to be the top dog, but we got involved with some real bad guys, and then I was the one that kind of laid back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because collectively I would get the shit kicked out of me if I didn't.
Yeah. Well, the Holy Spirit was definitely with me in those kinds of things. What you're talking about, Mark, sounds like you too. That the guys I ran with about everybody, but and I was who I was. But when I knew when it was time to go home, and there was a lot of things that happened after I went home that I had the police come to our house and say, you know, where were you, who you were with, what time do you get home? And I had enough evidence from my dad and mom saying, yeah, he came in at about 10 and that. But, you know, these guys would go like break into a gas station and steal candy and
Yeah.
break windows at the swimming pool. Those all things happened after I went home. But
Yeah.
you know, I don't want to say I was smart. I was just the Holy Spirit said, you need to go home. They'd say, oh no, come on, let's go, let's have some fun. I'd go, no, I'm going home. And I'd go home. Well, I avoided a lot of legal crap by doing that.
Yeah.
So how
Mhm.
trusting were you with others?
Right.
Way too much.
Oh.
Yeah, I really see. Yeah, I probably trust people too much. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
I don't know.
Yeah.
With your background, so where you grew up. Did you grow up in Pittsburgh, Mike?
Yeah, I did, and I was just thinking of us trusting. I think the friends that I had, we were quite trusting with each other, and it was never any doubt, you know, in what we were doing, and said to each other, and in confidence and that. And I think, yeah, I was quite trusting, and like I say, the friends that I really had, true friends, we had no issues. I didn't have all this crazy stuff, but I don't know, the people that start things that aren't true, and yeah, I didn't have that issue. So
Good.
trusting was easy.
Well, I can tell you, and I know the reason I picked on Pittsburgh, I grew up in a town with 6,000 people, so it was a small group, but, and you know, the good Lord laid out a path for me that was really pretty good because what you end up doing is you have a group of guys and money is not involved. Some of the guys had
Yeah.
their fathers owned banks and some people were, you know, were blue collar, hard working guys. But we all ran together. And when you ran together in my town, is that same group of guys that were all that were Lutherans or became Lutherans because we were together, ended up going to confirmation together, Sunday school together.
Hmm.
We were all in the same in sports. We were all friends in sports. We all supported each other. So when I talk about trusting, there was I don't say it's terribly small, probably 9 guys at least, about 9 of us that stuck together like glue. I mean, when Friday came, we were all together. Saturday, the weekend, we were all together. And then when we started having girlfriends, you know, the rest of the guys would stand down on the square as you drove by in your car with your girlfriend. And
Yeah.
but there was a lot of trust there, and I would say even today, as long as you know now this my 60th high school reunion's coming up, those same 9 guys. Now one of them's gone; he was killed in Vietnam, but those same 9 guys have all stuck together and still stay in touch. Uh, I know where they're all at; they know where I'm at. And when we have a reunion, you can always count
Mhm.
on all of us coming because we all get
Well.
together. So a lot of trust there.
Yeah.
We all went our different directions. We went to college at different places, but stuck together.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you see
Yeah.
that movie Sandlot, I often think of my guys because we played a
It's
lot of
pretty cool.
touch football in the backyard, played a lot of baseball over at the Diamond,
Yeah.
and
We did too.
did just all that stuff. Great way to grow up, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Basketball and too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
can't remember the guy. This guy had no kids, but he had a basketball hoop. Was the best one in Red Oak, with a big flat driveway, and he encouraged us to come play basketball there. He and his wife. She'd bring out like Kool-Aid and stuff while we were playing when it was hot, and we'd go over to his house. Kelsey was his name. Kelsey's. We'd go play at their basketball hoop, and all the guys would show up there and play, and it was like having your own gym outside. It was great, super
Yeah.
great. All right, when your money is running out at the end of the month, what would you do? I know, Mike, that'll be a tough one for you because your money never runs out.
No, there's money I have, but still haven't borrowed out there yet. There's no problem.
Yeah.
No, I just think when you know where you're at on your funds, you just lay back and be smart about it, and hope nothing goes wrong that you really need a lot of money.
Yeah. Well,
That's how I was. You know where you
that's
was, and you just didn't. You're just more conservative. That's all.
yeah. You just
What I did.
that's what I did. That's what we do. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's the way I
halfway
grew up.
through the month you can see that
Yeah,
we don't want to dip into something else, so it's throttle back a little bit.
I had nowhere else to go, so I was on. Forget, I was
Yeah.
on my own.
We used to
Yeah,
call
it's-
it delayed
yeah.
gratification. We used
Yeah.
to
What's
call
that
it
word?
delayed gratification. You didn't have the money, you didn't get it. You didn't go into
Yeah,
debt, borrow.
that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. You going
Well,
yeah.
we kind of learned our lesson one time too. It kind of takes a slap in the face once in a while to
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
overspend, and then the tranny in the car goes out, and oops.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Nowadays, I thought when you were a kid, though, sometimes you said, "What's money?" What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the hell? What the hell? It's only money.
Right.
I remember, I really remember that as long as I've been alive, when I was a little kid, I'd always say to my mother, "Mom, are we rich?" And
Yeah.
she'd go, "We are rich." I'd go, "Oh, great." And she'd say,
Yeah.
"Well, I mean, we're rich in love."
Yeah.
Okay. When I talk to these young guys, especially at street school, when I was there doing their thing, I was a supervisor before I graduated from college. I was a supervisor in the Douglas County Jail. So I supervised guys age 14 to 18. It was the Douglas County Youth Center. It's the juvenile
Yeah.
jail. And when I left there in 1969, on June 8th, my wife had twin boys. So then on August of that same year, I went to work as a teacher. I had graduated. So I became a teacher at North High.
Wow.
My income, I took a pay cut from the Douglas County Jail, being a supervisor, to become a teacher. My income was $6,000 a year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we knew we had twins, we had to get we had a 1-bedroom apartment. We had to get something we could rent. So in the Benson area, I found in Omaha here, I found a house that we could possibly, and it took up most of my income, but we rented that house. And we
Yeah.
literally did nothing. We didn't go to movies. We didn't go out to eat. We didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And the guys that had been teaching for a while were making a little bit more than me. And they'd say, "Hey, Gary, why don't you play some golf with us this weekend?" And I'd go, I can't. So what I did, so I'm talking about the plan. I really wanted to play golf with him. So what I did is I went to a old place like where you can buy used golf clubs and stuff. So I
Yeah.
got old clubs for $12, and then I budgeted for one game of golf a month. So every month, like I don't remember what it
Yeah.
was, the third weekend or fourth weekend of the month, I would go play. There used to be a golf course here in Omaha called Maple Village. And I used to play golf at Maple Village one time a month, and I saved for that. So that one time a month, I went out and played golf. I was working Saturdays on Saturday Rec. I was working all kinds of other jobs in the summer. I was doing concrete work and laying driveways and patios. So when I asked this question, and it comes from this Bible verses today we're going to read. You know, if you don't make enough, you make adjustments.
Yeah, that's it.
What concerns me is about today's generation, and I don't want to sound like an old fart, and excuse the language, but I don't see that. I don't see it even in my youngest son to say, "Hey, get a second job." What?
Mm.
Second job?
Mhm.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think all of us here in this Bible study, if somebody would have said you need to get a second job, you would have said, "Where can I find one?" I mean, you'd want to go and get it.
Mm.
It's a little different today. So
Yeah.
I had to tell you that. I'll never forget those days. And you know what? Sometimes I look back, I wonder how happy you probably really were in those days when you were saving and a golf game was really something for me. It was like, wow, I'm free. I can come out here and enjoy the outdoors and play golf. And you should have
Yeah.
seen the golf clubs. They were Wilsons and they were ugly.
No soft spot, huh? No soft spot.
No,
Yeah.
but the way I played golf in those days,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could have the best clubs. They wouldn't make any difference.
I know. Yeah.
All right. Nehemiah helps the poor, the book of Nehemiah. Now the men and their wives raised a great outcry against their fellow Jews. Some were saying, our sons and daughters are numerous. In order for us to eat and stay alive, we must get grain. Remember, these families, just like I think we were used to a little bit on our end, is that they were big. I mean, you had 8 and 9 siblings in the families. And the reason they had so many is all of those people worked in the fields and raised grain and were farmers like. So they had a lot of kids and a lot of people to take care of. Others were saying we are mortgaging our fields, our vineyards, and our homes to get grain during the famine. So some of the people were actually buying grain during this time. Still others were saying we have had to borrow money to pay the king's tax on our fields and vineyards. Although we are the same flesh and blood as our fellow Jews, and through our children are good as theirs. Yet we have to subject our sons and daughters to slavery. Some of our daughters have already been enslaved, but we are powerless because our fields and our vineyards belong to others. What you need to know is that we kind of look to say, okay, these are all royal people, people of the king's realm that are laying down all this pressure on them. But the reason Nehemiah is getting so upset is that when the first group of people, and it was like Zebediah was the guy that brought those first group of Jews over to Jerusalem. Some of those set up early and in retail and they made a lot of money. And these Jewish people had money. And so when the times got tough, they were okay. So what happened is like anybody, when you say, I've heard people say that when times get tough, the people that have money make money because they invest. Well, that's what's happening here is the people that are Jewish that have money, they're actually going out and buying up this land from these people and they're mortgaging their land over to these wealthy Jewish people. And then when they can't make a payment, they say, okay, then what we're going to do is you need to give us one of your children as a slave. Slavery, usually indentured slaves are like 50 years. And after 50 years, you were free. So it was no short deal. Or you could buy your way out, which was not
Yeah.
very easy. So one of the things that would happen is these families that had 8 and 9 kids, they started indenturing them over to these fairly wealthy Jewish people. So instead of helping them to get out of their misery, they were only making their misery worse.
Yeah.
See any of that today?
Well, it seems to me that, okay, so it was indentured servants, but the long and short of it is that it was like a second job to the kids. I mean, they had to go to work and unfortunately, you got to hope the parents didn't spend all the money. I can still see them more slaving out the kids, and pretty soon they don't have any kids to slave out anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully today you're compensated, okay?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
not slavery.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's like a part-time job,
Yeah.
sort of.
The one thing I thought of though, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in our world, especially here in the United States, if you think the amount of money that is spent on a monthly basis who people that are unemployed, not working, not planning on going to work, and by each child they have, they get more money.
Yeah.
And so we have a welfare system today that almost if you adjust to I mean, I could not ever live on that kind of money, first of all.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
all of you have higher goals, but those
Mhm.
people that are willing to set their goals at a different level,
But, yeah.
they are happy to stay in that box. They never try to
Mhm.
get out. They stay there. In fact, when I
Yeah.
mentioned another child, they find two things. One is being a single parent and having another child gives you more money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's been that way for 50, 60 years or more.
Oh, yeah. So, and what drives the Holy Spirit to drive us, I think somewhat, my job, our job, along with learning who Jesus Christ and God is they take that to that next step also, is to take care of themselves and get out of that rut.
Right.
Because a lot of those guys are in the same rut. And you get into and we're all could fall into that rut if you get that feeling of entitlement. When, I was talking to a guy last night, I said, why are you here? Well, it really got cold. Okay.
Sure.
Well, it's cold. You come here, you get your food free, you get clothes free, oh, okay. But to me, that was all, I didn't say to him, I would say, do you feel entitled to that? Or do you feel like that's an entitlement that you should have? Because I'm sure he's going to say yes.
Sure.
Even him. So, but
Yeah.
so what needs are going unmet with these people that are really hurting?
Well,
Your
food would be
self-worth.
on top of the list.
Yep.
Place to sleep.
Yeah.
It goes back to, I was just thinking about this as we were talking about when we were kids and what we did and all that other stuff, and we just got another job or something like that. When I was a kid, the basics were taken care of. Food, clothing, and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
I did not have to work, but I wanted to work to get things that I wanted
Mhm.
Okay.
that I wasn't given. But with that sets up a work ethic.
Mhm.
So as we're talking, as you get older and you have a family and you have
Mhm.
kids,
It-
because of the work ethic that you gained when you were a kid and you could see going what was happening around you, you would take a second job, sometimes even a third job on the weekend.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
a work ethic. You knew that you weren't entitled.
Right.
Yeah. You were the provider. Yep.
And like you were just talking, Gary, that's not what's happening today. You're right. These guys, a lot of these guys, we see them. They think they're entitled.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they go to work too. They make too much money and they lose all the benefits too. That's why they want to go to work too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's true.
Well, there's no
Yeah.
work.
It's interesting, and all this is super for what I was asked by LinkedIn to write an article about this generation of what we're just talking about right now of this entitlement. Because too many people, when you ask a lot of people of that age group also, well, the one thing you say, well, what do you want to be? What do you want to do in life?
Mhm.
What's the career you're looking for? Well, the one that gives me the most money. And that's the worst thing to do.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to look for a career that's you're gonna love and you enjoy going to work every day and you're happy with. The most disappointing thing in life is to hear these guys that are saying, I can't wait to retire. I hate my job. If you think
Yeah.
about it, 65 years old, they've been working how long at a job that they hated?
Yeah.
What do you think
Yeah.
about brought on the economic crisis? Why did this all happen?
In my opinion, I guess the term debt would be
Yeah.
people trying to keep up with the Joneses, or buy that second car, buy that boat, buy the, you know,
Yeah,
send the kid to hockey and karate and this and that. It's just overspending, and then, well, we get a couple credit cards, and then you really are behind the eight ball. I mean, it can be worse than drugs or liquor.
yeah.
Or living above your means and being reckless. Yeah,
Yep.
living above.
And
You
buy a
know,
house you can't really
you think-
afford.
you think your growing up, was it ever your expectation that your parents were going to take care of you totally after you became an
No.
adult?
The other
No,
way around sometimes.
well, we should have known the other way around, but absolutely,
Yeah,
I never, please, I'm not going to move in when you what at that age you want to move out, not in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I moved out at age 18, right after high school. I left,
Yep.
but I had been working almost a full-time job all the way through high school. I adjusted the jobs that I had so I could play sports. So I was
Mhm.
taking jobs. I'd go to work at 3 in the morning, work till 8, and then go to school,
Yep.
and then go to sports at night. And then on the nights we had games, I was sure I had that evening off. So,
Boy.
explain that to some of these young people today that they,
Yeah,
you're nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen.
well,
All right.
It-
When I heard the outcry on these charges, I was very angry. I pondered them in my mind and then accused the nobles and officials. I told them, you are charging your own people's interests. So I called together a large meeting to deal with them and said, as far as possible, we have should be brought back our fellow Jews who were sold to the Gentiles. Well, it is bought back. Now you are selling your own people, only for them to be sold back to us. They kept quiet because they could find nothing to say. So keep in mind, remember in the passage it said the nobles didn't do the work on the wall, they stood and watched. These are
Yeah.
Jewish people, by the way. These are like the Pharisees. These are the nobles that are really, the Jewish people are hurting their own Jewish people and this is why he's so upset. He's angry because of that.
Yeah.
To whom does Nehemiah turn in the face of opposition? He's going,
God,
It's-
it's like when somebody says, if you have an issue with something with a business or a retailer, talk to the owner, talk to the president.
Oh, yeah.
So what he did, he goes to the nobles and said, hey, he's obviously angry. So this doesn't come out there, but I'm sure he wasn't like sweet talking him.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he was laying it on the line. Why does he get so angry with the nobles and officials?
Because they're taking advantage of their own people.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So if you have a
Yeah.
neighbor that's down and out, we're not talking Jewish, or you have a neighbor that's down and out and needs some help, you sit down with the wife that night and say, hey, how can we get their property?
Yeah.
How can we get them to move out? We'll buy their lot. We'll buy their house. How can we get them out? So that's kind of where this was at. These people are down and out. Okay, how can we end up owning them? How
Yeah.
did the wealthy Jews respond? How do you think?
well,
If you went to the bank and said, I can't make my payment this month, and it's probably going to be 2 or 3 months because I'm looking for work, what would they tell you?
Well, we're going, if you don't pay it up, we're gonna foreclose.
Yep.
And
You walk out one day and your car's gone.
yeah, that's right. And then
Yeah.
in the case of property, and then the bank's gonna own it, and then they sell it at a discount to the rich Jew down the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2008, when the bubble bursted, and you saw those houses that were foreclosed on,
Yeah.
those people got 100 to 110% loans on the. So that means they got loans that was over really the value of the house, and the values of the houses even dropped. So the people that even had got loans for the value of their houses were no longer worth that much money.
No, they were
So
below water.
So and then they were losing their jobs. So, you go to the bank and say, hey, please, this has all gone the wrong direction for us. And the answer they got back was, well, I'm sorry, we're going to buy your house. Very similar to what we're talking about right here.
Yeah.
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 Very.
It's so unethical, man, that that's not right on what was done.
But it's been, as we can see, it's been going on for eons.
Right. It's true. Exactly.
And real quickly, I got back in, let's say 2005, I got a thing that looked like a check, and it came from Wells Fargo, where we had our mortgage. And it was for $325,000, and explained to me that if I were interested in upgrading and going to a house, this is what you could borrow. And that scared the crap out of me. And it still remains that way, because think of all the people that took the bait and got hooked. And,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
And that's what they did. I mean, they'd let people, it's like fishing, give them a little line, give them a little extra line, and you got them.
Yeah. True. I can't help but think that's why we got pawn shops.
Well,
yeah. No, and then, you're exactly right. We're very similar to this. We're probably even worse, though, because I don't know the Nehemiahs that are standing up and saying, hey, you nobles, hey, you officials, you need to think about what you're doing here. You're destroying whole families, because kind of what we're thinking about is the property itself, being the house, or the car. But what we're really doing is, you think about it, if you want to look at a lot of marriages that become distraught and they have divorces and they break up, you'll find a lot of them are having economic strife.
Yeah.
Can I give you just a classic example? Right now in Brooklyn Center, they want to run a $375 million project to upgrade the community center and put in running paths and all of this premier health club type things, and they want to pay for it by raising the sales tax.
Yep.
Now, isn't that just exactly what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
They're trying to give us some line and get hooked.
Yeah.
And then what happens if the sales tax doesn't cover it? Obviously, where I'm voting, but it's crazy. It's foolishness. And the facility that we've had is certainly good, because I belong there, and it's actually underused. But oh no, we gotta have something better. So
well, and I hear you, and I hear, back to those previous verses, what if those nobles would say, I know these are bad times. I know you're hurting. First of all, I'm going to give you some money for food. Secondly, if you have nothing you can use for your kids right now, have them come work for me and I'll pay them. And then you can take that money back home and they'll be at home. They won't be slaves, but I'll have them work for me and I'll pay them. Now,
Yeah.
that would have been the right thing to do.
Yeah,
Yep.
And that did not happen. And
No.
so we today don't do the right thing. Rather than encourage somebody to go to work, make some money, get out of debt,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
entitle them with money. We give them money to be poor. So if you become poor and you become entitled poor, you will probably always be poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to give you a personal example. I hope you don't mind, but my youngest son, Matt, he's into nutrition and all that stuff. In fact, he got his own. He's a nutritionalist. He's got his own store. And when he was thinking about buying that store years ago, he needed a little bit more cash. And he came to me. He says, "Dad, can I borrow some money from you?" Well, what am I supposed to say? He's my own kid. But I knew he was good for that and then some. So I said, "You bet. This is what we're going to do." Whatever the amount was, and it was substantial. Thank God I had it. I said, "Here it is, Matt. There's no interest. How long do you think you need it for?" Because I didn't want to just gift it to him at this point because he had it, and he did. He always did have a work ethic. He said, "Well, whatever time it was, I want to say 2 years." So this is not a problem. So he wanted to set up a payment schedule, which we did, which was fine. So I'm going to say it was 2 years that he had to pay this back. Because of what we were talking about and my upbringing, his upbringing, and everything else, he had that paid off in 6 months.
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got you.
So
That
Yeah.
doesn't surprise
I
me.
am so
He's a wonderful man.
I was and so proud of him.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to
Great.
talk to him and I've purchased some of his products from him and he's really, first of all, he's a man of his word. I
Yep.
bought something online from him and I think I told you, Marv, that I got it in the mail the next day.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was amazing.
No, he's the old saying, taking care of business. That's what he does.
So
Great.
I will always go back to him. As soon as I run out of some stuff, we're going to sit down and talk about a vitamin plan. So when you get to be 77, I know I'm not probably getting all the vitamins. He said, "Look, I'll sit down with you and we'll go through what you need and we'll get her done." I went, "All right, that's great." He sold me.
Yeah.
So I continued, "What you are doing is not right. Shouldn't you walk in the fear of our God to avoid the reproach of our Gentile enemies? I and my brothers and my men are lending the people money and grain." So he's doing what I was saying, what we should do today. "But let us stop charging interest. Give back to them immediately their fields, vineyards, olive groves, and houses, and also the interest you are charging them, 1% of the money, grain, new wine, and olive oil. So stop that stuff. We will give it back," they said, "and we will not demand anything more from them. We will do as you say."
Hmm.
So he called their
Yes.
attention to what they were doing. And believe me, they're not idiots. They're businessmen. These people knew that they were charging them and they knew that they were hurting, but it didn't bother them. Now that he's really made it out in the open, they're saying, "Okay, we hear you, we hear you." But he used Gentiles to do it, by the way. Did you see that?
Yeah,
The
I
Gentile
saw
enemies.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So what he was saying there, by the way, is you're going to see the Gentiles, they're going to see what you're doing and they're going to get in here and they're going to start buying up our places and with their money and with their,
yeah, well, they probably weren't smart enough.
yeah.
Hmm.
So they responded by, very clearly. They said, "Yeah, we're okay. We're going to do this." have you given mercy to someone who owed you something? So how have you ever had anybody owe you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I will tell you, I have a similar situation as Marv's, but when I loaned the money, I told my wife we'll never see it again.
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
everybody to be prepared that it was, I did it out of my heart, but I didn't
Mhm.
think we'd ever see it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Guess what happened?
Just give it to him.
I am
Very
so
good.
proud of those guys.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
I was so wrong. So I should have been more faithful to God and my Holy Spirit that I was doing the right thing and the right thing would happen, because I was totally, completely surprised when I said, I should have never said, we'll never see that money again. So
Yep.
you got to have faith. Just got to have faith. How about any of you loan? I know Marv, you told you did that with
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, I did.
Mhm.
My wife said, you might as well give it to him.
Yeah.
And I did.
Mhm.
Yeah. We
See,
give
and
them to 'em.
investing in the future is so much different than investing in a property. I mean, when I say something that doesn't give them back money, I may have helped with a house or something for a living. But you know, there's somebody came and said to you, Dad, I really want that Corvette. Will you loan me the money for that Corvette?
No.
Uh, you can drive a Nash Rambler.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
that'll get you there just as much as that Corvette.
Well,
Yeah, I
Gary,
tell
you taught your boys the same thing I was trying to teach mine, and that's responsibility.
Oh, God.
And they're, by the way, and boy, what you did, Marv, and I think the guys too, but what comes with that sometimes in today's world is you got this neighbor, well, Billy's folks gave him a car. Billy doesn't have to work. His folks give him a big allowance every month.
Oh, yeah.
So, you
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
in today's world where we came from and our own kids came from, you know, my two boys are proud that they worked hard to get where they're at, the twins.
Yep.
But, you know, some people would rather have you give it to them today than to work hard to get there.
Yep. That's true.
So, scary
That's it.
situation.
Yeah, well, Billy's got a new bike. I want one.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I gotta tell you, my mother, you know, my mother graduated from high school in 1939, never went to school, was a housewife all her life. It was a super lady, one of the most brightest, intelligent people for never going to school other than high school that I ever met. Now, the reason I tell you that, she had all these sayings all the time. Now, if I would say Billy did this or did that, she'd say, well, if Billy robbed a bank, would you rob a bank? I
Right.
go,
You
no,
jump off. Yeah.
don't ask for that either.
If Billy would jump in a lake, well, yeah, okay.
You
Yeah.
know, Gary,
Yeah.
I gotta remind you, last night when we were talking to Tom Day,
Yeah,
we asked him what kind of college education he had. This guy's got 3 businesses.
yeah.
He never went to college,
Huh?
but he had work ethic.
School
That's it.
hard knocks.
Yeah,
That's it.
it just happens. You know, it's same way.
Yeah.
I have a son that started with a white, old, used, beat up van painting houses.
Yeah.
Now he owns a multi-million-dollar construction company.
Yeah.
So hard work.
Yeah.
Then I summoned the priests and made the nobles and officials take an oath to do what they had promised. I also shook out the folds of my robe and said, this is really typical at this time. He shook out the folds of my robe and said, in this way, my God, shake out of their house and possessions anyone who does not keep this promise. So he laid some heavy duty, you know, this is a contract. So may such a person be shaken out and emptied. So the same thing would happen to them. At this, the whole assembly said, Amen, and praise the Lord. And the people did as they had promised. So he didn't go with just the idea that we talked about trust. He said, okay, we're gonna go through this. You're gonna promise you're gonna do this. And then he laid it on him with about his robe. So what do you think Nehemiah was doing when he did that? Why did he say that? Did he needed to say that?
He's making his point.
He solidified it. What we went to in days past this is, remember the old time when guys would say a handshake is enough?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of where he's at here. This isn't the handshake, but he's saying to them, this is what I was going to happen if you don't do this, or if you don't keep your promise. So, but then we moved on to the days of the 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s, where we'd say, I heard it myself, where it'd say, you know, a handshake's enough. Somebody'd say, well, we'll get a contract together. I don't need a contract. Handshake is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of credibility. Yeah, really. Yeah.
Now you get a contract that's 16 pages long.
Yeah.
If you
Right.
buy a house, you'll spend 10 minutes signing papers.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Who is the Nehemiah of today? Do you know one? I do. My son. He not only has done well, he hires a lot of these guys from the Open Door Mission.
Cool.
Mhm.
He helps
Yeah.
them get on their feet. He gives them, and you know, I want to tell you, I said it last night. I've placed about 7 guys in the last couple months, and out of those 7 guys, we've had one that didn't make it with my son, and then another came later. But I'm not even going to count him. He was there 1 week and gone.
Mhm.
But really, out of that, even if you want to take the 2 out of 7 didn't make it.
Yeah.
I'd been happy if 1 out of 7 made it.
Well,
You know that guy that he fired, Gary? He did him a favor.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep, he did. And you know, that kind of that music that you all play in your minds of helping these guys goes so much farther. Because and I felt that last night when I walked in that door last night, I had people coming up talking to me I didn't even know, but they had heard it from other people, and the news travels. You know, I was telling my wife this morning, I was saying, you know, 2 things they ask. They say, well, when I'm looking for a job, can you help me? Yeah, we'll do what we can. 2, do you have any more clothes you're giving away? Because I've given a lot of clothes to Open Door.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, no, I'm sorry. I kind of emptied the closet for myself.
yeah.
So I really don't have any, but I said, you know what? If you want to make that request, because Open Door has a policy that if you work for them, you cannot give them clothes. I found that quickly when I worked for them, so I quit. But if you are a volunteer and you bring clothes to give to them, they won't say a word about it. So as a
Yeah.
volunteer, I said, if you think you need some clothes, then what do you need? And we can express that. Maybe somebody in the group has clothes. We're always emptying I mean, I needed to empty my
Mhm.
closet.
Yeah.
I had
No
clothes I
doubt.
didn't wear at all anymore. So, and if you're like one of my sons, not the construction son, but the other son, he's got clothes still got the tags on them. He hadn't even worn them yet. So it's time for him to give those away too. And I've talked to him about it.
Yeah.
All right. Artax Moore from the 20th. Great name, huh? How'd you like to have that name spell out for you in kindergarten?
Yeah. Sign your
Can you spell
checks.
your name? Well, maybe by the time I'm in 6th grade.
Yeah, well,
Artax Moore from the 20th century of King Xerxes. When I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Judah until his 32nd year, 12 years, neither I nor my brothers ate the food allotted to the governor. But the earlier governors, those preceding me, placed a heavy burden this is Nehemiah talking, by the way, placed a heavy burden on the people and took 40 shekels of silver from them in addition to food and wine. Their assistants also lorded it over the people. But out of reverence for God, I did not act like that. Instead, I devoted myself to the work on this wall. All my men were assembled there for the work. We did not acquire any land. So, quite honestly, what this is talking, how did Nehemiah meet up with this challenge? You know, basically, he focused totally on that wall. And when, you know, none of these people were working on the wall because of the famine and because of the taxes and because of all those things that were happening, he got them to focus back on that wall to get them back to work because it wasn't happening. They were so involved with their livelihoods, they couldn't spend time working on the wall.
Wow.
So in your church this past year, what crises were evident? Politics, other morale problems have hindered your service to God and others. Is there anything in our church that hindered our service to the church? That's, you know, we have some of us here that are in the same church, others that are in other churches. All right, be honest, guys.
I just don't have time. I got other things that are more important.
Oh, yeah. The one
Yeah,
thing
well.
that I know that I wrestled with, I joined that church that I belonged because of a guy. That was the pastor. The pastor dies. They hire a new one. Now I'm weighing whether I should stay that church or go to another church. That's me. But I will tell you that I was looking at that because I was thinking, okay, I came here because of Larry Argenbright. Larry's gone. John's here. Should I stay? What should I do? Again, kind of political. And every week you go to church, you often talk to some people, not everybody, but some people that has issues with, you know, I don't know, we'll name them, but there's a person that when they move the music instruments and everything over to center stage,
Yeah.
I didn't know, but there was something underneath the altar up there that was buried. So now that person didn't like the musical instruments and all that sitting on top of that stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm only using that as an example. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I'm just telling you, it causes for you to focus other than on God and God.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
And I think every church has got a sister better than thou, and yeah, it's sometimes hard to turn around and realize how many of those people are in any type of organization. Doesn't have to be a church.
Yep.
I think we're having growing pains again and requesting more space and things that we're doing with the, you know, the building project. Yeah.
I've headed up several building projects for different churches I belong to, and I will not, I can't even begin to tell you how many different views on the building project that I would get on
Yeah.
all the way from, you know, we're glad you're doing that to where you cannot raise that much money. It can't be
Right.
done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Furthermore, 150 Jews and officials ate at my table, as well as those who came to us from surrounding nations. Each day, 1 ox, 6 choice sheep, and some poultry were prepared for me, and every 10 days, an abundant supply of wine and all kinds. In spite of all this, excuse me, in spite of all this, I never demanded the food allotted to the governor because the demands were heavy on these people. Remember me with favor, my God, for all I have done for these people. Did God want us to deal with non-Christian differently than Christians?
Oh.
No. Basically,
No, absolutely not.
he didn't say Jews or anything. He just said
No,
people.
people.
Yeah.
We need to remember that.
Yes. That's why I only take care of Lutherans.
Oh, you know, Gary, the way that you put that was just perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've been looking at a few churches myself, and I've run into some of that.
yeah, yeah. Well, the stages of life we've all had in different times of eras. There was eras that if you dated some girl, was she a Lutheran?
Oh,
She's Catholic? Oh my gosh.
well, and then then they'd tell you that's it. You're not dating her.
Yeah. So,
At least in our days, that's happened to some of my friends.
yeah.
My grandma told me that if you date a Catholic girl and get married, the Pope will run your life.
Wow. Yeah.
Has there ever been any time when your Christian beliefs cost you something?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Gary said it.
I'd be surprised if you haven't. If you
Hmm.
express yourself strongly as a Christian, and somebody might say, well, he's a good old boy, he's a Christian, this bothers you. If you didn't drink, or you didn't cuss, or you didn't this or that or whatever, would that ever keep you from being a member of some groups? Yes.
Yeah, well, our pheasant hunting group for 50 some years, the minute you bring up your faith and things, there was one guy that just absolutely, he said one time, he says, last time I was in church was when I got married, and he was proud of it. So sometimes you don't bring it up.
Oh, I'm glad you bring that up, because I think we don't really realize what we do. We have those situations. If I ever could have changed one for me, is when I was in Indianapolis. There was one of the senior VPs of operations, good close friend of mine, still is, very Christian guy. Another senior VP for recruitment and advertising and marketing, another great guy, good friend. But on Fridays, once in a while, they'd both come into my office and we'd talk about a lot of things. But the guy that was a Christian once in a while would bring up some stuff that was very Christian oriented. And the minute he brought that up, the other guy would leave. He would never stay. And we noticed it. I said it to him. I said, every time we start discussing any Christian things, he gets up and leaves. And we never ever got anything. I said, what? It was obvious you leave and he never let on anything at what the issue was, but he did not stay.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I didn't lose the friendship, but we lost the communication with him if he brought it up. So interesting. Another war veteran from Vietnam, another war. He was in the Navy, held a big, I think he was like captain of a ship. But I don't know if that had anything to do with it or whatever, for what he had seen or where he'd been, but definitely bothered us. The poor complained to him about great hardships, which the rich, of whom they were forced to borrow money, but put upon them by the rich. Nehemiah took the effectual course to reform the oppressors and relieve the oppressed. So these are all things we learned today. The excellent example which he himself, as a governor, set them of compassion and tenderness. He was kind of that guy that set the stage where he was that model that everybody should look at. How bravely Nehemiah and a wise and faithful governor stood up on his guard against the attacks of enemies abroad. We read in the foregoing chapter, here we have him no less bold and active to redress grievances at home, and having kept them from being destroyed by their enemies, to keep them from destroying others. I think I have says, ouch, is sad but true, but the Church of Jesus Christ has often been marked more by factions than by fellowship. There's even a book called, which I have ordered, by the way, I'm going to read it. There's even a book titled Great Church Fights. And when I get it, I'll read it and I'll let you know what it was like. This is kind of, we'll do this and then the prayers, but I wanted to hear this. I'm always searching Billy Graham stuff. He has said some of the most great comments. This is real short. So I'll let you hear it.
In Revelation 3:20, the scripture says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me." Knocking at the door of the church, knocking at the door of your family, knocking at your door. Why doesn't he just push the door open and come in and save me? He never interferes with your will. You have a will of your own. That's the way he made you. He made you in his image. You can reject him. You can go to your grave rejecting Christ, and there's nothing God can do about it. He'll do everything in his power to warn you. He'll do everything in his power to bring incidents across your path to stop you. But he won't trespass on your will.
What's your thoughts on the video?
I love it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I gotta tell you guys again that weren't there, but last night when Gary was up in front and we were teaching, we'll use that word, to those 30 some guys that were there, Gary mentioned to them that they need to allow God to come into their life. They need to invite him. They need to invite Jesus into his life. And in my little group afterwards, we were talking about that portrait. You've all seen it, where Jesus is standing at the door knocking. And if you notice, if you know what I'm talking about, look at that picture next time you see it and see if there's a door handle on God's. Is not. He doesn't open that door. You have to open it for him. Amen.
Yeah.
And
Good.
the simplicity of that message that you're right, is that as much as we could teach to try to say to them, you can't do drugs, you can't do alcohol, you can't. No matter how many times we say that, they cannot achieve that completely. They will not, when you find these guys falling off the wagon, you cannot completely put this to rest until you let God into your life or Jesus. When you finally get them there with you, you're done. You're not going to do alcohol. You're not going to do drugs, but you need their help. We can't do it alone. We need God to help them. And that's why I wanted them to hear that. And I'll probably end up saying that every week, because it takes a while for them to get that. The other thing that you have to understand, the alcohol and drugs fogs people's minds. I saw it really when I was teaching at the Learning Center. I saw guys become actually more intelligent the longer they stayed in the class, because when they started, they were a little bit foggy, but as they continued to clear their minds,
Yeah.
so they were actually understanding better what we were talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Any comments about the lesson today?
No. This was really great learning more about Nehemiah. It's been good.
Yes.
Great guy.
Yeah.
All right. I'll shut this recording off and then we'll talk about prayers.